Welcome back to Genealogy AI Face-Off. I'm Coach Carole, and today we're testing how well Claude and Chat GPT can extract key genealogical facts from historical documents. I'm going to be using our case study of Thomas Hugh Savage and seeing how these AI tools handle the critical task of information extraction. First, in my prompts today for ChatGPT is this one. Can you extract all birth, marriage and death dates for Thomas Hugh Savage and his immediate family? And above, I've uploaded the 3 documents that you saw in my introduction video. Perhaps you have seen that already. If not, go back and have a look. I wanted to see how well ChatGPT and Claude could do this. And here is the response from ChatGPT showing below with the key birth, marriage and death dates for Thomas Hugh Savage. Birth, death and burial for Thomas himself. Birth and death for Emily, his wife. Birth, marriage, death and burial for their daughter Martha. And so far, just the birth for their granddaughter Catherine. It has included the birth, marriage and death dates for the parents, Martha Elizabeth and James Savage. And then asked me if I'd like any more details. Before we go on to the next prompt, let's see how well Claude went with this same prompt. Here's my prompt at the top. The difference here is that I'm using Claude projects. So I have a subscription to Claude, and we're currently in a project in which the documents that I needed to extract the data from are already existing. It has gone ahead and extracted the birth, marriage and death dates for Thomas and his immediate family. It's laid it out and formatted it a little differently to Chat, but essentially it's the same information. It has included here the fact that he was born at Railway Cottage in Canale, Pembrokeshire, Wales. And back to Chat to see where that was included. Yes, it was. So far, so good. And then the marriage date and place, death date, and then arranges the next set of dates via these headings: immediate family, parents. So it's slightly different to the layout in ChatGPT, but the information is the same because it's drawing on exactly the same document. The information about the father and the mother, and a note here for Martha Elizabeth Evans about the coroner's verdict. Back to ChatGPT, see if it included that. No, it mentions the fact that it was death by family. So Claude is getting a little more in-depth just with these facts. Then details for Emily, the wife. And based on the ages given, approximately 1906 is the date that Claude says for Emily's birth, given that she was baptised in June 1906. Marriage date and death. And let's go back to Chat and see what he said about Emily's birth. Doesn't specify here, it says 3rd of June 1906, but that wasn't the birth date. That was the baptism date. It does say that at the end, baptised at Blackrock. Continuing, details for their child, Martha May. And some information is definitely still to be researched. It mentions marriage date is not specified. Then on to the only fact we have about the grandchild, and that is the birthday. An interesting way in which the Tiltham extract the details from the documents given. Move back to chat and move on to the second prompt. And now we are asking it to extract all the locations associated with Thomas's life in chronological order. Here they are: birthplace and early life, mentioning the places: Railway Cottage, Tenby, likely place for his childhood home. Not known, but for sure, but we're given that clue because mother drowned off the coast of Tenby near Caldey Island. Youth and migration, we do know that this Liverpool was the possible departure point for migration, and he arrived in Quebec and then moved on to Toronto. His family and marriage. Toronto is mentioned again, where he married his wife, and then the place where his wife died is mentioned here, Miranda. Later years, Ontario again, and then where he was buried in Clinton Public Cemetery. So let's head over now to Claude and have a look at how it's handled the same prompt. Slightly different layout. I tend towards preferring the way in which Claude lays out the details I've asked for. This makes it easier to read, in my opinion. So the locations again, I mentioned a little more detail here in that Treffline Farm in Pembrokeshire is mentioned, is where Thomas grew up. Liverpool for departure, and then more specifically, St. John in New Brunswick for his arrival point, then Toronto for his settlement, and then mentions the various places when they returned on their transatlantic crossings. So Hamilton again, Ontario, Liverpool, and then places that they were going to mentioned in their passenger lists. So it's much more detailed, and it has dug deeper into the records that I've given it. I'm very happy with the way in which Claude has traced the locations of Thomas Hugh Savage's journey from his birthplace in Wales, his migration to Canada, his travels back to England, and his final resting place in Ontario, Canada. Once again, I am using my Google Docs to show these details side by side. It's a useful way for you to then look at the differences in the way in which both tools have handled that prompt. What I find particularly interesting is how specific observations about differences in how they organise the information, handled the uncertainty, or cited resources. A couple of practical tips for you to end today's tutorial. When you're asking AI to extract facts from your documents, be specific about what you want from each. You can add more details into your prompt than I have included here. For this one, for example. You could also ask for the information to be organised in a particular way, whether it be chronological by person or some other format. You can also request that the AI indicates uncertainty when information is unclear. And finally, always verify the extracted information against your original resources. So as we've seen, both AIs can effectively extract basic genealogical facts, but they have different strengths. In our next video, we'll see how they handle timeline creation, turning these facts into a coherent chronology of events. See you then.